Looks like Matt's finally playing an adult here in round 5. Looks like I've got audio on. Claims Chess Dojo streaming. There's Matt arriving. Computer seems to be dying today. Probably I worked it too hard with too much chess yesterday. I think I did over 12 hours of chess yesterday, actually. Which is more than I normally do anymore. So that is definitely thanks to COVID. I did 8 hours of my Chess Dojo training. Quoi? She needs stuff. You can go get it for her. Lily? Okay. So I did 8 hours of Chess Dojo.
She's in the middle of a thing.
It's okay. So. Her Invisalign's on the counter. Thank you. I'm joined today. Oui, je t'ai entendu. Invisalign on the counter.
Exactly, and I think Lucelia needs to clean upstairs. So
no.
I will go to Richmond to work when she gets here. And you are negative now, so you can interact with her with the mask and move Lily outside for them to clean the upstairs. Okay?
Oh, I don't know.
No, really. Air out the upstairs. It should be fine. It really should be okay.
Beautiful handshakes right there we just got to see. But now we will pause the videos and wait for moves to appear on the internet. That was really a lovely moment we caught there just now. Let me adjust Matt's video just slightly. That's what All right. So, good afternoon, Joao and Pizza Racer. I've been joined by a second member of the family with COVID here in my little COVID reserve. So we've got a little one with COVID in the room with us. Oh. I just tested negative, which is fantastic. But not feeling great this morning. Greetings, Ivan. So we're getting into round 5. As you can see, the players just started playing. There's a 10-minute delay on the boards on the relay, so we will wait 10 minutes to start watching their videos, you know? So let me open up some more boards here. That doesn't look right. Pizza Racer very focused on the result here today, demanding a win from or for Kostya. I just hope Kostya has a fun game like every other day. Yesterday's game was perfectly interesting, right? Hey, Dublin. Gabriella. So yesterday I was told that this is the Italian flag, not the Irish flag. Maybe I should look them up to make sure I've got the two clear in my head. What? It looks the same. Yeah, I can't tell the difference. Why did somebody criticize me for getting that wrong yesterday when it's literally the same thing? I was looking at, somebody's opponent yesterday and there was a flag up. And I said, oh, it looks like they're from Ireland. And somebody said, no, they're from Italy. I'm like, what? Now I'm looking at it. It's the same flag you two have. Maybe the shade of the color is a tiny bit different, but on the size of a chess.com icon here with the resolution on my computer, there's no way you could know which is which. Come on. One is more red and the other is more orange. I can't see that difference, honestly, I'm telling you. I just looked at the two on here. It's very faint. Wow, look at that. Rachel already lost her game. Fantastic relay. Okay, so we got Matthew, Kostya. Oh. Okay. Oh, that's harsh, Murphy. That's harsh. Portugal, maybe a similar distance from Italy or Ireland. Maybe Ireland's a little bit further. I don't know. The distances on the map are tricky because you always look at the map 2D and then you find out that the distances are not what you thought. I learned some of this just recently, this year, because I have a brother who lives in Taiwan, and he was flying to California to visit, and I thought that he would fly over the Pacific, and he told me no, when going from Taiwan he flies basically all the way over Alaska, and so basically it's faster to come up over the top of the globe, even from an island all the way in the Asian, near tropics. It's faster to fly over Alaska, over the north of the globe, than to fly around over the Pacific. And some other things too. I learned about geography recently from looking at maps of where he is. My favorite game collection biography. I've got it right here. I found it in a used bookstore recently. Lucky. They were selling it for $14. Used to be you'd get stuff like this for $2 when I was a kid, but I think that's one of my 2 favorite chess books of all time. Italy is closer. Okay. And has a much bigger population. Right. Murphy, should Northern Ireland be part of Ireland or part of England? Or do they call themselves Great Britain? Great Britain? Terrible Britain? Mediocre Britain? The tournament here seems to have a fair number of Portuguese players. That's good. Hi, Oscar. How have you been? That would make sense, Ivan. Yeah, if you were going to write about Tal, he already wrote such a good book about himself. Oh, Pizza Racer calls it the United Kingdom. Well, Murphy, nobody here sees your social media footprint, so you can safely give me an authoritative opinion from someone at the source, and no one will pin it on you in a controversial way. Oh yeah, Ivan asked me about this book, and I gave the answer Tal. And Oscar Chess says Rachel has been really playing well. We're going to restart Matt's video as his first move comes in. Kostya's first move probably also just getting relayed. Goes for an English again. Nice. And Oscar Chess, Rachel, I've tried to suggest to her that she could use Mikhail Tal as a kind of inspiration and model for her chess. So those 2 points are linked. You had a discussion on endgames on another platform and said all you need is Dvoretsky's endgame manual. Do I agree? At what level, Kevin Winter? England is the best country in the world despite the lame government. Okay. Still the best. So does that mean England was the best country in the world in 1900? When did England start being the best country in the world? She is not afraid of sacking her pieces. In fact, Oscar Chess, and this you may have also noticed, she is on a mission to find opportunities to sack her pieces. That's one of her goals at this tournament. She doesn't have to sack them just because she sees how to sack them. You see what I'm saying, Oscar Chess? The goal I gave Rachel for this tournament was twice per game to notice an opportunity to go into the deep, dark forest. Anyone who knows Mikhail Tal will understand what that means. So the goal is becoming aware of what our chances and opportunities and moments are. And then from there, what you want to make of those opportunities, that comes next, right? Evaluating them, knowing when to press the button, when to go for it. But first, you have to see that it's there. Maybe Matt will have nothing but Frenches all tournament. Yeah. Well, can't say he doesn't know. Can't say he doesn't know what he's doing in the opening with that. Same thing they did in other colonies other than Ireland. That's a good point, Murphy. We could probably look at some patterns there. England is the mother country of the USA, says Kevin. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose you could say so. Well, Pizza Racer, I think Kevin doesn't just mean in terms of like where the people come from, but kind of like the institutional origins, you know, like the U.S. government was originally developed from the British colonial government, you know, which has its antecedents with the British government. So, you know, structurally, governmentally, legally, there's some kind of origin there. Wow. Murphy answered my very controversial topic with the wild claim that imperialism is bad. And on that note, we wish everyone in Ireland a wonderful, happy, non-controversial future. And we move on to Ivan's dream that Kostya will colonize his opponent's kingside with his pizzas. I think that's the kind of colonialism that everybody in this chat can get behind. Although at the moment, if you look at the structures of the openings, it is Matt's opening, which is better poised to colonize Artur Lemos's kingside with his pieces. He's got the space advantage from the advanced French pawn structure, although it started as a Tarrasch French, right? 392. But this is Jesse's aggressive repertoire says, get a pawn chain that points towards your opponent's king, and then your natural correct positional plan will be to checkmate their king. Then you can play good chess and deliver checkmates, right? Colorado, Wyoming, and South Dakota. That sounds beautiful, Kevin. I had the feeling that you loved the U.S. You're right, Pizza Racer. Even in terms of colonies and origins, you know, the U.S. bought Louisiana from the French, and there are other parts that were the Dutch, and it's true. It's a much more complicated parentage, I guess. Much more complicated parentage. Fair enough. All right. Black plays bishop e7. After thinking for a moment, a couple minutes here for Matt's opponent. Now, normally in this position, the black players try to resolve the central situation like this, challenging white's space advantage in order to be able to defend their king. They get slight weaknesses on the e-file, which some of you might sort of see here at e5 and e6. But the good news is they've got some more space around their king to defend it, and the half-open f-file for counterplay as well. That's the normal approach to this position. Bishop e7 makes us wonder if, like Matt's first round opponent, black intends to castle kingside, not stake out any space, and get slowly squished there like a bug. For now, Matt castles, and we'll see if his opponent plays f6 in the next move or two. I don't see a hard, fast reason why black couldn't play f6 now, or even, you know, castle first and then play f6. Although at some point, if he gives white more time, maybe... Normally in this knight d2, knight e2, bishop d3 setup, white doesn't have time for f4, right? And there's a different line with f4 where you don't take the time for bishop d3. But here, maybe Matt could play bishop d3 and f4, and that could be a big advantage for white, actually. Ooh, so it might matter already. Yeah. But his opponent simply castled. So now it's a moment for Matt to choose whether or not he wants to play f4. Oh, he played it faster than I could comment it. So he says, yes, I will take the advantage having the bishop on d3 instead of f1. For reference, folks, I'll show you the other line that I'm comparing this to. In this position here, there's another line that goes f4, c5, c3, knight c6. Now you have to defend your pawns like this with the knight. And then typically, you know, you get your king displaced in order to get this pawn chain. So you end up with your bishop on f1 and king on f2. If you compare that to what Matt's getting in the game, he got bishop d3, developed the knights fast enough to castle. If black plays f6 in this position, he doesn't have the time to play f4. For some reason, it doesn't work. White would trade on f6, play knight f3, and castle. But because black played bishop e7, Matt gets the time to castle and then grab his space with f4. So this should already be, I would guess, overwhelmingly promising for white. I would think already. Yeah, the modern Milner-Berry gambit, Kevin Winter, is also known as the easy system against the French by Jesse. And he's maybe the originator of the whole movement. He published a video on YouTube about it, which was picked up by Anish Giri, which was whispered to Magnus Carlsen, and then Magnus played it himself. So I'm a great fan of Carissa's, for sure. But I think that's a little bit the origin story of this exciting new approach to the French for white, which I've also tried out. I've sparred it with Jesse. I don't play it too well just yet, but I'm hoping to one day. It's interesting, very interesting. Excuse me, I'm tested negative, but still not 100%, so there's going to be some congestion on the stream today. Anyway, all of that to say that this position already looks like a very, very good chance for Matthew Purchard to colonize the king side, as desired by Ivan. So I think here, I just want to swivel this knight to f3. One nice thing about knowing a structure or an opening is that a certain number of moves come slightly easily to you. Right, the h4 move. Yep. I've played that h4 move many a time now. That does sound very interesting, Goose Chess. And with Kevin Winter also saying it's an excellent book, I feel like I've received a recommendation. All right. Well, we'll leave Matt to ponder for a moment. I'm fairly certain his steed will saunter into f3. Let's have a look at what Kostya is getting here. His opponent is Gabriele is thinking like a minute or two on each of his opening moves. So it's not like deep prep or it's really good acting. Ali Reza is playing Titled Tuesday right now, before his round at the Sinkfield Cup. Well, he had a disappointing game yesterday, right? And it won't be the first time that he played some online tilt during a major tournament. So good news for whoever plays him today. Very good news. Perhaps he's already been up all night playing Blitz or Bullet, prior warming up for Titled Tuesday. So black breaks in the center very aggressively for being on the black side of the symmetrical. Bishop G2. I feel like something like this is like a Jesse dream. You know, he dreams of doing this. Saying his pawn's on C3 versus your pawn on C4. He's playing Noterbeck today. Oh, Noterbeck needs it. Show me the speed. Noterbeck needs it. Oh. I do wish very nice things on Noterbeck this week. Such as... and I can't think of something much nicer than playing Alireza after he's been up all night playing Bullet. That would be... that would be kind of what Noterbeck needs at this tournament. Good question, Joao, on the French game. We'll touch on that in a moment when we get back to that game. I promise we'll discuss those questions. But now we'll have a bit of a look here at Kostya's situation. So his opponent chooses to concede sort of a tempo and send the knight off to this square, which is a little bit odd and awkward. If we imagine black having a pawn on e5 and a knight on c6 and being white in a Marazzi bind, the move would be knight c7. That when you don't want to trade and you aren't ahead and you don't have enough strength to support your knight in the middle of the board, the most common square to drop it back to is c7, because that doesn't get in the way of like the b pawn defending this when Kostya plays queen c2 or rook c1 at some point. So knight b6 is like a slightly awkward square to drop the knight back to. And my guess would be it's mildly imprecise, but kind of like a new feature or element for Kostya. So he needs to do some reasoning. What's the best approach for white here, right? How can you seize some minute advantage out of this? Hey, Axe Maia. For the moment, I've got two boards working here. Let me check my other boards since you asked like that. Rachel's, it has this weird thing that claims that she lost the game before it started. I noticed this while I was waiting for the game to start. Then it played a few moves. Now it again says she lost. So I don't know if that board's working. I would say not. And Anushka's board, yesterday she was black and she had no clock showing. Now she's white and her opponent has no clock showing. Yeah. Some wrinkles still, yeah. Kevin Winter asks, what's the odds on Kostya becoming a GM? That's really hard to estimate. It's hard to estimate. I mean, right now, to me, GM seems an ocean away with the FIDE ratings where they are. I don't know if the ratings are eventually going to move back up from the points that were infused a year and a half ago that haven't yet really come through. But for now, getting to 2,500 FIDE seems really, really difficult. Kostya is more consistent than me, and his ratings maybe a little bit higher, but I think it's still a really big distance. Let's see. Oh, he's over 2,350. But he's also crossed 30. He's also got, other things to take care of in life other than just playing. I mean, you see him playing and studying quite seriously, but there's an even more serious degree at which 16-year-olds play and study when they don't have to go to school or work or make money or anything. I don't think his odds are great to become a GM unless something changes with the rating system. 2,500 just seems so far away to me right now. And I see tons and tons of people with ratings that are much lower than before, and they're not necessarily ancient. I see like 30-year-old players whose ratings are 150 points lower than they were 10 years ago. I get it, Ivan. Yeah, maybe. Right. Goose Chess's point is very important. Someone's odds of making GM are tied. I can't say it better than Goose Chess, so I'm just going to read Goose Chess's comment for everyone on YouTube. Commenting on Kostya's odds feels intrinsically tied to how much he is willing to sacrifice in other areas of his life. I think he could do it if it was his sole priority. Right? So would he give up everything else? Give up the dojo, give up teaching, all other interests, hobbies, limit all socializing to time that you couldn't study chess anyway because it would be overdoing it. Then we'd say his odds would be somewhere, I don't know, in the 75% range, right? But if he's going to do other things in his life, then 150 points is pretty far away. Kevin Winter, what do I think of having streamers at tournaments? You think they might have too many at this tournament? MD Knight, Anushka lost the Neidorf game yesterday. Let's see, Kostya picked an approach here. E3. Okay, a surprise to me. Is he maybe going to play D4 and take an isolated queen pawn? Huh. Okay, honestly, obviously I'm, distracted by a lot of interesting questions in chat and not focusing like Kostya. My first thought had been to maybe play E3, bishop E3, and attack that pawn, since black has blocked the move B6. See if we can just go after it and bother black with it, right? You could play moves like rook C1, knight E4, and just attack that pawn on C5 a bunch. Maybe make black play knight D7 to defend it and sort of tangle their pieces even more, possibly. That was the first thought I had. I don't know if it works or not. It was just my first inspiration of what one could do in this position. Honestly, there's even a theme where you go like knight E4, E5, queen C2, and you try to just win their pawn at the start of the game. Black does this in a line of the English opening from the black side. They attack this pawn. I normally think of E3 as being linked to playing the move D4, so maybe he's got that in mind. Is there something the queen's doing over on this side? I don't know. Havana, you've seen this exact position in a course? Wow. think my video was a little bit behind. It just showed him playing e3, but we already had e3 on the board here, right? What was that? Knight c6, knight g2 getting played. Maybe it was that. Maybe that was the next exchange of moves. I hope I didn't hop too far ahead in my video. My video should have been in the right spot, right? Knight g2. Okay. The Iron Botvinnik. Interesting. Okay. Kevin Winters was asking about, are there too many streamers at this tournament, right? And to comment about Matt, of course. Yeah, I'll reintroduce Matt. I don't know that they can have too many streamers. It's like, can you have too many people show up to your chess tournament? You know, everybody brings and adds something, and it's fun when all our stories intertwine, when we connect with each other. So I don't think it's bad for the tournament to have too many streamers. I mean, once they have a certain number of streamers, I don't know if they need to keep spending and investing in having more streamers if they're paying for them. I don't know to what extent they are. But I don't think having them is bad in any way. For some people, it might be uncomfortable to play against opponents who are streaming your games. So I definitely think the opponents should be able to opt out of having their games streamed. Like, if I'm just a normal person, so to speak, going to a chess tournament, and you're a streamer, and I don't want your 20,000 people watching my game, I don't think that I should be forced into that situation. So the Wi-Fi has been a problem, Pizza Racer. Yes, that may practically be more than they bargained for or something. But yeah, I think honestly it's overall a great idea for these tournaments to look to build their visibility and their popularity by harnessing streaming. I think it's great. I mean, I look up and down this list of streaming things here on the left, and there's always Title Tuesday on these days. But right now I see Maia Chess Festival as well, Maia Chess Festival. Something I have no idea what it is. Maia Chess Festival, Maia Chess Festival. You know, Title Tuesday, Maia Chess Festival, right? So it's good. Makes people know about the tournament. Then you get more people coming to play in your tournament the next year. I think they've got a lot more people playing at their tournament this year than last year, which allows them to invest in more DGT boards. Yeah. And I find it, as Far Eastern says, for me, it's more relatable to watch players I know. So there are some GM tournaments that I can relate to because I know some GMs, right? But I find it more interesting and relatable, far more interesting, let's just say, far more interesting to watch a tournament with people I know than to watch a tournament with people I don't know, period, right? Which gets at the next answer to Kevin's question, or the answer to Kevin's next question, which was about Matthew Purchard, right? Why are we watching him? Who is this guy? So Matthew Purchard is a member of the Dojo. He joined our training program maybe just over a year ago. And then at some point we sent out a message asking the Dojoers, for help. Every now and then, Kostya, Jesse, and I, we need help with something or other, and then we often just send a message out into the Discord. Well, they do it because I don't really know how to use Discord. They send a message out into the Discord somewhere saying like, hey, is there somebody who could help us with, making thumbnails for our videos? Or is there somebody who could help us with programming a mobile app for the scoreboard? Or is there somebody who wants to, make clips out of our videos? Something like that. So we decided that the training program was good enough that we would gladly show it to as many people as possible. You don't want to show people a product when it's not going to be good, we didn't want to show the product to people when we didn't think it was necessarily going to be good enough to make a great impression. We didn't want people thinking, oh, this isn't that good, and then never trying it again when we improved it. Of course, we were planning to improve it, but it was good enough that we finally wanted to market it, so to speak, right? To get it out there. So we asked for help with marketing, and Matt got in touch with Kostya, and he became our marketing person last December or this January. So about 8 to 9 months ago. And he's been lovely and wonderful, and so I've spent a bunch of time with him because of that. And then about one of the things that Matthew helped implement that I had in mind was he helped implement a small affiliates program. So just like Maia is using other streamers to try to increase their profile, we want to also harness streamers to spread the word of the dojo training program and general dojo values and view of the chess world. So Matthew signed up 2 relevant affiliates with us. Rachel, whose opponent played another move after 18 minutes of thought despite her early resignation, and Anushka. So then Matthew had the marketing idea that they could document their training for this tournament for 5 or 6 weeks. Yeah, I can't do anything about it, Far Eastern. My child's in the room with me and she is sick now. Yeah?
A couple thoughts.
Can they wait one moment?
Sure.
I'm mid-story. Thank you. So Matthew had the marketing idea that we could also document the training done the last 5 or 6 weeks for this Maia tournament. And so Matthew, Rachel, and Anushka came to me. They're all in the same cohort, right? The 16 to 1700 cohort. They came to me and said, okay, do you have any advice on our training? And so I took the 16 to 1700 training program and I looked at their most recent games and their strengths and weaknesses and their profile. And I told them what part of the training they should do for 5 or 6 weeks, right? I said, do these tasks, do this in week 1, do this in week 4, stuff like that, right? So I told Rachel, play through the Mikhail Tal games that are in the Study Master games. But I didn't tell the other 2 to do it, right? So I kind of customized it a tiny bit for them. I changed 1 or 2 little tasks. And I set them on a course to train. And so now, of course, it's particularly interesting for me to see how Matthew is playing or how Anushka is playing or how Rachel is playing after having followed and tried to guide a little bit the training they did in the last 5 or 6 weeks here. So that's what we're looking at. And that's kind of how and why we ended up looking at it like this. All right, so Matthew's game, I'll show you the moves. F6, he defends E5. Now Artur plays F5, locking up the game, and this is what Joao wants us to talk about is, when should white trade on F6 to open things? When should white give black the option of playing F5 to try and lock the board and defend their king. Question, can folks tell what Matthew's plan is when he plays rook g1 here? I love that Matthew's playing much quicker than on other days. Like, he knows what he's trying to do here, right? I'm going to leave you with this for a moment and go consult with my partner about whatever she needed just now. Be right back. Whew. Yes, Kevin Winters. I went and took my orders. Okay, I just saw Kostya castle. I'm going to sync his video by waiting for him to castle on this board here. I'm going to fix my error from earlier and get things resynced. I think his opponent played e5 and then he castled. We'll get to it. And then finally we will talk about Joao's questions here about the French defense. Hey Dripman, I feel like you played knight d2, bishop d3 against the French in the past, the line that Matt's playing today. Hey Nemtomi. e5 eventually played. Knight c3 for a long time? Okay. My bad, sorry. Okay, just trying to sync this video here. That's correct, Far Eastern, yeah. Matthews played against the French twice, and once he played against the Caro, and when he played the advanced variation, Black played c5 on move 3, right? Which is a very French-like Caro-Kann variation. And then he played the French as Black. So, yeah. All right, let's put it. There we go. All synced up. All right, let's go talk about our French game for a little bit. So, my opinion in general, Joao, is that black playing f5 to gain space for their king is okay for white. It's not a problem. Because we can always eventually play g4, or even sometimes immediately, right? Like, well, in the game, black played f6, and only after knight f3, f5, right? But sometimes when f5 gets played, you could even just go g4, takes, knight g3. You know, pawn takes, queen takes, just do it like that, right? Pawn takes. I don't know. I just ignored that whole thing over there. Send everybody here. It looks almost over. Yeah? So, in general, f5 provides black some breathing room, but I don't go out of my way to take on f6 as white. I'll maintain my e5 pawn if I can. And in my experience, the positions where you take on f6 as white are largely positions where you can't quite maintain the pawn on the e5 square and you have to trade it, more than positions where you want to trade it. So f5, sure, it gives some breathing room for black, but I still believe that, you know, when Matthew pushes g4 here, he'll have very, very good attacking chances on the king side, right? I imagine black will have to play h6 to try and keep things a little more closed. And this position looks pretty miserable for black to me. I just develop some more. The dark squares are very weak around the black king. This bishop's not getting out. There's not much counterplay. Maybe a good plan would be queen e1. If only I had arrows. Bishop f2. Bishop h4. To weaken the dark squares. Give the knights access to squares like g5 and h4 to attack black's light squared pawns from. You could also eventually play h4, h5, do double contact with the pawn structure. For those of you who saw Kostya's game yesterday, remember in the King's Indian, which, as Jesse says, is the French defense flipped to the other side. There's this pawn, and you play b4 to attack it, but it's hard to break it. There is a plan there as well where you apply double lever at the same time to open up more. So, in short, there's always room after f5 for white to still open the king side, in my opinion and experience. There's always just enough room that you could still open it up and win. So I think Matt's position is glorious. And he's played g4. I see it on the board there. And I love how he's going confidently and directly towards the right ideas this game and not hesitating. So can black play something crazy like h5 to force closure? Maybe. They could try it. It would depend on some tactical details, but you know, as long as this pawn is still on h2, like let's say I played my bishop e3 move here, I guess, h5. As long as the pawn's still on h2, white could play h3. And then they preserve the chances to attack g6, h5, e6, those kind of squares as much as they want to see if they can crack black and get 2 pawn trades instead of 1. But then the other thing for black to calculate when doing something like this is always to make sure that that pawn on h5 is not so far advanced as to be a real weakness compared to here, right? So if white goes knight g5 attacking this with the idea of bringing in the rook and then knight g3, the pawn on h5 would definitely fall there. So black would have to defend this pawn with a move like knight b8, right? Then we have to calculate knight g3. We could trade this, but white comes in with check. And we can see that here it's not working. I know you calculate plenty well for all that, Richie. But yeah, generally speaking, I would think it's going to be a rare scenario where h5 is going to work for black in this game with the current balance of forces. We could imagine the white pieces being fully misplaced and black already having a queen on e8 and maybe like a knight on g8 or g7, something that would be a little bit rare in a French. Maybe some scenario where you could play h5 and try and lock things up a bit. But I've honestly never seen that theme actually used in a French defense game, and I've played a lot of French defense games from both sides. So, hello, Lazy Sat. Hope you're doing well on a Tuesday, if today's Tuesday. G4, G6. Matt's played another move already. I think it may have been my little development move. Also really good to see Matt develop his pieces after yesterday. No, he's developing not the bishop, but the queen. And he's playing so much faster and more confident today. He's just like on target. He's doing what he wants to do. I love this idea of putting the queen on h3, actually. That is just beautiful. This move is just a thing of beauty. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's a beautiful move. If black wanted to play bishop a6 with a5, he could even try to prevent it with a knight move. That's a really sweet move. And queen f1 to h3 takes the same amount of time as maybe like queen e1 to h4 at some point, which can't even happen. Oh, no, that's beautiful. Oh, rarely do we get to see that pattern. He had to... Wow. I guess one strength that Matt has that we can notice from yesterday and today is he's got a very, very open and flexible mind as far as finding maneuvers and squares for his pieces. He doesn't just retrace the squares the pieces always go to, you know? Like, I'm pretty stereotyped to some extent about where I put my pieces because I've studied so many classic chess games and spent so much time looking at them that when you need to put your piece on an unusual square, sometimes I just don't see it. You know, I'm always trying to develop all my pieces to kind of normal central squares. You know, there's a kind of stereotyping to it. Matt's really good in this point. I mean, I've been playing the French for more than just this tournament, Oscar Chess, right? And I think Queen F1, I've never seen it before. I'm sure I've seen more Frenches than Matt has. Lovely move. Very nice. Very nice. Let's see if the game where Rachel resigned, if she's continued playing. Yeah, despite resigning on move 1, she's continuing to play some moves. D takes E4. Looks like White's intention is going to be FE5 with complications, right? Yours never end up on usual squares. Yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily complaining about my own deficiency. I'm just saying everybody has their own foibles. Well, as one could expect, you know, The Walking Dead moves slowly, I think. I mean, I've never seen The Walking Dead, but my general zombie knowledge. And Rachel having already resigned, this game is moving most ponderously. 4 moves. 4 moves played in 50 minutes. Wow. Whereas Anushka and Klim are looking at an endgame. Here, black threatens rook takes b5 because of the hanging rook on a2, you see? And so Anushka backed off of her outpost and offered a queen trade. And I think black can take it and just come out fine out of this opening. Just trade, trade, And here, attacking all these pawns. Knight c3, right, to defend both pawns. Give up the, whatchamacallit, the Banco Bishop. And now, depending on how aggressive you are, you can play Rook a4, very safe from black, small advantage. Or Rook e4, hoping to also win the a pawn and like really crush white. But I don't see how exactly you win it once it goes to a5. So maybe you have a more complicated battle on your hands, but I think, you know, maybe bring the knight this way, try and win this pawn and head over that way. Serious chances of winning for black. Looks like after queen a6, white might have another way to have stopped this rook takes b5 move, right? No, b3 doesn't work. They still take, and your queen's defense is not enough. Uh-oh. So what was the idea there? Oof. Somehow this went wrong very quickly for white, in my opinion. Maybe the rook should have gone to a3 instead of a2, so they would be on an anchored square there. But how did black get this like knight g4 and everything so quickly? This is all theory, right? Absolute main line. Normal. Normal. I mean, this has to be normal up to here, but somehow it feels like... Yeah, I mean, it seems like rook a3 should be played now, Matthew, but I'm trying to feel why it seems like black's already doing so well here at move 14 in a line that shouldn't be that good for black that quickly. Yeah, DGT stuff, Far Eastern. Yeah, she resigned before the first move was played, according to the DGT. And she's still playing some moves, you know, after resigning. Because, I mean, you might as well. Chess is a censorship platform? I thought it was a chess platform. That really came out of nowhere for me, Richie. That seems like more like something that somebody would have aimed at chess.com than at Chess. Shadow bans. I think a shadow ban is when your account is limited in some way, but you're not informed that it is on a website or service. So instead of being told that you can't post things, you can post things, but no one can see what you've posted. So the problem for Anushka is this bishop sitting on its home square. So she went here because she wanted to go bishop d2 to c3. If she went rook a3, there's no plan for getting the bishop out to d2 and c3. Why is this so hard? The Banco is so hard to play from white's side, I think. I've always thought that. How do you know that you're muted, Richie, if it's a shadow mute? Oh yeah, moves coming, flurries of moves on all the boards. You can't even say good game to an opponent. That's unfortunate. Yes, Cubics. The number one thing in the Banco, like plan A or element A, is pressure on the A and B files. Anushka's using a famous plan with the pawn on A4 and the knight on B5 to try to block those files and blunt Black's pressure. So it's an advanced technique. But look what Black did in this game anyway. They came up with this move Queen A6 and they're threatening Rook takes B5. And Anushka played knight c3 to get out of the way of that. And Black trades. And the rook comes in. And look at this. Black has already taken over the game. Depends on the opponent, Kevin Winters. Depends on the opponent. I suppose a lot of them don't really mean it. Probably most of them wish you bad luck, I guess. This is a pretty standard approach by Black, Skibix, and it's working completely. So, I don't know that there was a flaw in what Black did. It's working beautifully. No, b3 instead of knight c3, Black could still take the knight. And White has no way to capture on b5 that isn't losing that piece. See? Matt clearly has something hard to think about. Maybe you said something worse yesterday, Richie, or 2 days ago that you're struggling to remember. I studied the Banco yesterday. And should I tell you the secret? the secret of what I discovered? Goose Chess, I do favor Jesse's suggestion from the advanced French. That sort of modern Milner-Berry gambit or easy system. I do favor it as well, yeah. Oof. Well, this is so hard that I don't know what Anushka should have done. I can't figure it out. It's beyond me. I would need 20 minutes just analyzing this to have any hope of figuring it out. This seems like this went so easy for Black. Knight g4, so they even have the move knight e5 ready whenever they want it, and they got to the queen side quickly. Check rook a3 here, but rook a3 here like loses a tempo. We could have just done it a move ago if we wanted to do it, right? Oh, are these questions for me, Kevin? child with COVID on the bed right next to me. Yeah, I've got a partner and 3 children, and I'm no longer much of a chess professional. My last chess tournament was 15 or 16 months ago. I don't get to play very often. But when I do, I enjoy it a lot. Knight b5 was a novelty. So white overplayed it by trying to set up the knight b5 too soon. We've got somebody in the YouTube chat, Matthew, thank you, who has looked up some opening theory for us. So knight b5 was a novelty. So that's an overplay from white and not what white normally does here. So thinking about what white should do here. Maybe there's some other possibility. It's not easy to say. This piece is really not good at the moment. You could bring this knight towards c4, maybe, because against knight g4, maybe you have f4, kick the knight somewhere, and then still play knight c4. Maybe we could go here, here. Sorry. Knight d2 could be a move. Black might go rook b8. Knight c4, queen a6. That doesn't look amazing for white, since black's just going to play knight b6 and knight e5. Instead of knight b5, knight d2 was the most popular. Oh, I did guess it then, Matthew. That's good to know. But then... That makes a lot of sense, Richie, but bear in mind that a lot of the people you think cheated didn't cheat. Bear that in mind. Knight d2, rook b8. Oh, I know what I do. I go knight c4, queen here, and then I want to go knight b5, but I'm still hanging my face. So what am I going to do? I'm now going to develop the bishop here. Maybe. And then when they play knight e5, then play knight b5. Knight takes, queen takes. I lose my extra pawn. Same old, same old. This is why it's just hellish to play the white side of the Benoni, of the Banco. The Benoni's fun for white. The Banco. I'm glad to humor you, Richie, and hear you out. Seems like there should be some way to appeal the auto mod shadow ban feature, right? I have no longer ambitions of the GM title, Kevin Winter. Does it really matter to me? No. I mean, it doesn't matter zero. You know, if I said I didn't want to become a GM, or I wouldn't love it if I went to tournaments and was suddenly good, that would be lying, right? So it matters a tiny bit. My daughter lazy sat. She's very, very happy to have COVID because it got her out of school for today. You thought your cat was laughing, Goose Chess? Do people still get COVID? I'm pretty sure I can confirm they do, Kevin Winter. I had COVID the last 3 or 4 days. My daughter has COVID today. I can't figure this out. My condolences to Anushka playing the white side of the banco. Really tough. All right, so let's see what happened. What? White doesn't even venture the boulder fe5. Huh. But goes straight into a line which must be mildly agony for white. Black could isolate white's pawn, but rather than making a pawn weakness for white, Rachel looked to get a little bit ahead on development here. Oh, she's, as I said, Kevin, she's very happy to have COVID because she got out of school for today and probably the rest of the week. Yeah, I don't think White wants to play this Arsenal fan, Richie. I think. Well, the weird thing is, yeah, I see what you mean, Richie. Like, why would White know of the Vienna game, play the Vienna game? Black plays the most common move in response to the Vienna game, and the very next move, White doesn't know what they're doing. Maybe they invented the Vienna game over the board today? Maybe they're like a chess experimenter like me. You know, they just look at the board and think, huh, I wonder what would happen if we played like d3, knight d2, e4. It's very hard to explain, yeah, what would get someone to play to this opening as white. Yeah, I can't really imagine. But they are also playing quite slowly, right? Perchard got queen f1, long thought, rook h8, queen h3. And yeah, we're going to look at the Kostya game now, Havana. Just moving back down the line of boards. All right, so let's go to where we were with Kostya's game and try to understand some more of it. So here Kostya plays knight e2. Black sets up the Marazzi bind. Kostya gets castled, and after bishop e7, he plays f4. Some knowledgeable bloke in chat had said that this is a Ginger GM recommendation from a course called something like the Iron Botvinnik or Botvinnik's Iron Solid Rock or something like that, which normally would be pawns at c4 and e4 for white. But the idea was you're waiting for black to play e5 and then you play f4, leaving yourself with a weird d2 e3 center, but eliminating all of the opponent's center pawns. And then he moves to fianchetto this bishop here. Havana says this entire thing is in the course. Wow. But they're reinventing the wheel, Havana. These two have not seen that course. Look at Black's time usage. 40 minutes for 10 moves. And for Kostya to spend 20 minutes on 10 moves, it's not slow, but it's not as fast as normal Kostya standard. If Kostya knew the theory, like by heart, he'd be playing this faster. I think he's playing fast enough that he has some idea of what he's up to, but the fact that he stopped after knight b6 and thought 6.5 minutes, I think he was already kind of coming up with ideas. They're going to be based on ideas he's seen before because he has such a broad knowledge and experience of chess, but he's still sort of picking what to do here. I have a thought that maybe he wants to play queen c2 before bishop b2. Notice that he's thinking in this position, and bishop b2 looks like a super simple, obvious move, right? They put their bishop on the long diagonal, you put yours there. But, you know, I'm thinking there's some question about this d3 square, right? Where black could go bishop f5 or knight e5. Actually, they've got knight b4, which means queen c2 is a bad idea. So scratch that, right? If I go queen c2, that could only make knight b4 worse, right? Yeah. Kostya's made a move. We'll see what it is. It'll pop up here, hopefully instantly, if I got things synced right. There it is. Bishop a3. Okay, he goes after the pawn that I mentioned with the knight on b6 7-8 moves ago. Kevin tells us Ginger GM is a top guy to have a beer with. Nice. Wait, Kevin, you said that you were motorcycling across the U.S., but you have at least 2 friends who are British. Are you a Brit who vacations in the U.S.? Or what percent of you is British versus American? You seem to be somebody who likes a lot of things. I note that you like England, America, motorcycles, beer, chess, probably pubs, conversations, grandmasters, and nature. An English person, but somewhat of an Americanophile. I've never heard, you know how they say like Francophile? I've never heard a similar word for America, for a lover of America. Wait, Rich, you're thinking of giving the rook here instead of the pawn? Wow. Let's think. What are the options? Pawn's attacked. Black could try and defend it, or they could counterattack stuff of white's, right? Is the knight on g4 not just hanging? For some reason, every time I scan to Skibix's question, are you now forced to play? Every time I scan there, and then he's got the word ugly under it, I hear, are you now divorced? That's ugly. Are you now forced to play? Looks kind of ugly. Bishop a3. Often you like to ignore an opponent's threats if it's just a pawn, you know, and do your thing. I don't see a knight hanging on g4 in Anushka's game. Sorry. Oh, so you're helping me with this thing from long, long ago. Oh, you're giving me this basic opening theory. I must have missed your comment for a long time. Sorry, Matthew. Thank you. So the point is, in this position, the book move knight d2, it does ping that knight. So that's a strong move. Because as I mentioned before, against knight e5, there's f4, trapping the knight, right? You send that knight home for white, now you're just in business, right? You kick the queen, she goes over here. Plenty of time to play like bishop d2, connecting the rooks. Rook b8, knight b5. That makes sense of the whole thing. That's the tempo. That's the juice white needed to get a position that I could never figure out in this Banco game. Whew. I couldn't see queen takes knight, huh? It's a sad moment. Well, thank you, Matthew. I know you tried to help me. Um, I appreciate it. Some people are beyond saving, you know? All right, I got some message from the school. Oh, a second. I should answer this. I should answer this message. Sorry, let me just email for a second. You know, I have to just deal with a few things with my daughters. Testing positive this morning. I had to communicate with schools and so forth. Okay, sorry. My apologies, folks. I'm not very professional. This is my profession. I'm just not very professional. Bad behavior by pupils? Oh, I'm sorry, Kevin. Teaching is lovely. It's really lovely. But there are definitely challenges. And then sometimes there's not proper support. I mean, I was answering a personal email during a professional engagement Far Eastern. Julian, yeah, I think I know where all the pieces are in all the games that we're following, Julian. Just kind of in general, like if I'm not looking, right? Kostya just played bishop a3. Am I on the right board? Let me just check. Yeah, I've got the right board up. Kostya just played bishop a3, attacking the pawn on c5. Black has a bishop on f6 and a rook on f8, right? The rook on f8 is in the line of fire of the bishop on a3. The bishop on f6 is lined up with Kostya's knight on c3 and rook on a1, but if it wanted to, it could drop back to e7 to protect the pawn. It probably doesn't really want to. Kostya has knights at c3 and f4, which are poised to move into d5 if black defended the c5 pawn with knight d7. Knight d7 would also block in the bishop on c8 before it could find a good square. So that would be also a downside or awkwardness to defending the c5 pawn. You see, I know where all the pieces are because I've already, at a glance, when I saw the position, taken in how every piece is kind of in relation to each other and in relation to the c5 pawn and what the advantages or drawbacks might be to each way of defending the pawn, right? Black could play queen e7, defending the pawn with the queen, but lining the queen up with the bishop is a gasp moment. It also puts the queen in the line of fire of knight to d5 from the white knights, right? Etc. Yeah. So I can't see any of that in my head. It's just information that's in there. It's just stuff I know. All right. Let's look at the board anyway. The link didn't work? That's very weird, Richie. You could try starting from here and search. Oh, it did work. Okay. Good. Oh, you got a variation that doesn't work. Okay. Won't Queen E7 be a losing error? Queen E7 looks like an error. Yeah, Queen E7 looks like it would allow white to play knight FD5 and then take on F6, destroying black's kingside. That would be the major downside. I don't think you immediately lose on this diagonal, ironically, because D4, there's Queen E3, and then you take the knight. It's possible that white could hurt you with this pseudo exchange sack, right? With the idea of maybe recapturing, maybe taking on F8 first and being up a pawn. But the simple refutation to knight D5, I think, I don't know if it's completely like game over winning, is you do this. You're hitting the queen, and then you're taking on F6. By knight or by rook, I'm not even sure which, right? By hook or by crook. But something like this should be amazingly good for white. Maybe even throw in rook C1. Why not? Use all your pieces. So yeah, so black has just played bishop takes C3. Fairly sad move. A fairly sad move. Because I still don't see how they intend to defend the pawn on C5. Obviously, they're trying to get around some quick knight D5 from Kostya. But when there was a rook on A1, to feel forced to trade that knight with the bishop feels quite poor. And if the dream is rook takes E3, I mean, let's be aware that bishop takes C5 is going to defend E3. So maybe they want queen E7 here, Richie says, with the tempo on this pawn. Wait, a move just came in. Queen E7. Okay. And now you can't play bishop C5 defending the E-pawn because C5 is protected. So, the queen buckles up and tries to do the job. Kostya's position looks great to me. I'm immediately drawn to, again, flinging my queen towards the opponent's king. Remember, everybody, that today the mission has been given to colonize the black king with the white pieces. That is the mission that has been given. So I would fling the queen over here, since I'm sensitive to that. I don't know if Kostya felt those vibes today, but queen here. The idea is bishop c5. The idea is also that we hang this pawn with check, but we just sort of shrug, and we're looking at a position where an open bishop pair and an open rook pair can just kind of rage on black. Two knights on the queen side, bishop and rook on the queen side. None of this stuff really matters if we try to attack the black king. The bishop a3 move really jump-started the game, didn't it, Richie? That little angle on that one little pawn, and suddenly white's lighting up the board in a weird way, right? So now here, as black, I might save my rook to an open file, but beware, right? There's this square. Oh my god, can I do it? No, there's a knight here. You know what I wanted to do? I wanted to let it all hang loose already, right? With this check and then this check. I was already dreaming. But there's a knight on b6, so we need to eliminate that piece first. Let's get started. That was really close to working, by the way. If not for the knight on b6, it was queen f7 time. Bishop c5, have at you. Actually, where does this queen go? Here, I suppose. Can I do it now? Unfortunately, my bishop's no longer covering e7. So I probably don't have a checkmate here, right? When the king walks away. It's not just you. My computer is sort of dying. Alice, yeah. It's having a problem. Don't know what to do for the poor thing. But even here, queen f7 is perhaps playable. Ah, there's this move. Okay, why is my computer dead? Let's see if we interrupt queen f7 to troubleshoot technical difficulties. Oh man, the computer's just overheated brutally. Poor thing. Maybe an ice pack. Let's get the computer an ice pack. Folks, I warn you now, never buy a Mac. Never buy a Mac. I'm gonna put it on ice like a 40-year-old professional basketball player. Yeah, entire household is sick, even the computer. Ay, ay, ay. Unfortunately, I put more than $1 into this computer to begin with, Kevin. Oof. I'm on a laptop, Matt, yeah. See if that's helping. Seems like the dropped frames have calmed down. Yeah, I'm not necessarily recommending a Windows computer either. I hate that program. But this Mac is a bummer. All right, let me know if it goes off the deep end again. Let's try and follow the game. Kostya's already played his answer to queen e7, so we get to see it. He plays king h1. Not too dissimilar from my queen h5, but actually a bit dissimilar. My queen h5 was more aggressive. I'm not saying better. It was definitely more aggressive because it invited black to spend this move. Kostya is paying the sort of tribute tempo with the king, right? Whereas queen h5 immediately attacks the pawn on c5 and just brings the fight to black. They have to do something. If they defend the pawn instead of opening up the game, then they block in the bishop and they basically concede the game, right? We come in here, and etc. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I already did have it lifted off the table, both for airflow and so that the video would be like, so the screen's at a better height for me, so I'm not like down like this on my computer. And that was not enough. Order a cooling pad. Okay. I'll try that. Right now, I literally have it on my hemophilia ice packs. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm excited for Kasparov versus Anand. Kevin, I'm a huge fan of 960, as you may or may not already know. So I'm glad that it's 960. And I think part of it might be, let's say they don't work as much on chess right now, Kevin. 960, I think a lot of people think, oh, 960 is for, super GMs, like for people who've gotten so good at chess that they need something new to explore. And it's not necessarily for people rated 1200. But I remember when I was running a chess club, there were a lot of people who didn't want to come play in tournaments because they didn't want to do the work of re-upping their opening repertoire from when they were younger. So I think a lot of people who've had like a gap in their playing don't want to have to, rebuild, remember openings. And 960 actually makes it, opens it up for those people to play freely. That was like what I really saw at my club, was like people who were like 40, 50 years old who'd played chess in their teens and their 20s and then hadn't played in their 30s, that openings were really what kept them from restarting normal chess tournaments. So the Kasparov-Anand match, I assume, is rapid because it's 12 games in 5 days. So I assume it's going to be rapid chess. It's not blitz because they could do it in 1 day or 2 days since they're old. Should be a good match. I'm guessing it's something rapid, maybe like 30 to 60 minutes per game, something like that. 2 games a day. I haven't seen the time control yet, though. And it's going to be in September or October. It's pretty soon, maybe a month away. Okay, so let's go further into this game. King h1, rook d8. Oh my god, but these are the pieces that needed to move, my friend. Gabriella. Kostya wants to play queen h5, doesn't he? Yeah, sophisticated. We've got one on Chess Dojo. Of course. Chess Dojo. Material. Courses. Caro-Kann by Jesse. It's already included for free if you're a member of the Dojo training program. If not, it'll have some reasonable price, less than a Chessable course. Okay. And I'll just tell you in advance, the way to last minute prep your opening, or to prep your opening at any point, or to get ready for playing an opening in a tournament, is not to cram a bunch of lines that won't mean much to you. It's to spar. You have to go to the positions that he'll give you a list of positions, and then you just need to play some practice blitz games from those positions. Okay? Kostya looking very energetic today. I'd say he looks like he'd be up for, a run or a tennis match or something like that as well. He looks like he's got energy to spare today. Absolutely, Goose Chess. Openings are a huge part of our culture. My opinion of the elephant. You mean e4, e5, knight f3, d5? Like a chess opening? I haven't studied it much, but I always thought it was bad ever since I started playing. But, I've been learning some new things recently, Arsenal fan Richie, for example. So there are some things that, there are some openings we've been wrong about, others we've been right about. Now, I looked at this opening with a supercomputer yesterday. d4, d5, c4, knight f6, c takes d5. You know that Queen's Gambit decline? I think it's called the Marshall defense, where black takes on d5 with the knight. So I put that into a supercomputer yesterday. I was like, I'll just go check. I've been working on my opening repertoire, so I'm just going around and checking some old openings to check my conclusions about them, right? Like, was this opening really bad or is it really good, right? Just wanting to know. Does it turn out the Alyekin's defense is good or bad, or how bad, right? So I put in the Marshall defense, and in that position, the computer flashed up top move c6, not knight takes d5. What? I looked for a bit. Computer says, after I looked for a while, computer says, yeah, knight takes d5, terrible, like we always thought. But in that position, black can play c6. c6. And if white doesn't take on c6, black gets an exchange Slav, right? They play c6. If you play something like knight f3, knight c3, whatever, they play c takes d5, exchange Slav, normal, right? If you take on c6, they play knight takes c6, attacking your pawn on d4. You can't play d5 because knight f6 is controlling d5, right? They've got two knights out, you have none. Right? Are you with me? d4, d5, c4, knight f6, cd5, c6, d takes c6, knight takes c6, attacking our pawn. Natural move for white, knight f3 defending it. Black's playing a Chigorin where they're down a pawn, but their pressure is coming much better and faster because their queen's not a target in the center, right? So white plays knight f3, and now instead of bishop g4 like the Chigorin, which would make sense, black hits white with e5, extremely forcing move. White has to take on e5. You play queen takes d1, king takes d1, knight g4. White has to play king e1 to defend the f2 pawn. Now black's playing kind of like a pawn down Budapest, right? Where at some point you're going to recapture your pawn on e5, but you'll still be down one pawn. Guess what, Richie? The evaluation of this insane gambit that I don't think even has a name, the evaluation is plus 0.2 in white's favor. Whereas playing knight takes d5 for black is like plus 0.9. It's like, just forget this opening. Do not play it. It's just off the list. You can't play the Marshall defense. You truly can't. Right? But that c6... Now, the c6 move, it's amazing. In a certain sense, it's theoretically pointless, right? Because if black wanted to, they could have just played the Slav on move 2. Right? If black wanted to, they could have played c6 on move 2. They didn't need to play knight f6 to get here. But it shows how it can rock some things are going to rock our understanding of chess, right? So the idea that black against a queen's gambit can just go d5, you take it, c6, let you take on c6, then take with the knight and like be almost equal. Certainly a supercomputer will draw you every time. You will never win a game as white against a computer with that opening, right? That still bends my mind. And so when you ask me, what do I think of the Elephant Gambit? I'm like, well, I thought the Elephant Gambit was bad, but maybe I'll find out that it's fine when I look at it with a supercomputer for the first time. I got his book, Kevin, but I haven't read it yet. His book about how to learn chess from computers. I got the book. I'm going to read it. I'm going to study it soon. It's like near the top of my list right now. So... all right. Let's see. Do we have a move from Kostya yet? No. Whoa, sorry. My computer is very tippy on this. The ice pack's not totally flat. I mean, in a sense, Richie, in Blitz, you can lure somebody into that opening. I mean, it's kind of pointless as tournament prep, right? Because people already prepared for the Slav. Maybe if they don't play the exchange Slav and then you play c6 and they're like, oh shoot, should I play the exchange Slav without prep? But honestly, Honestly, like, how badly surprised is white going to be if they don't accept the gambit, right? But it's funny. It's just funny in terms of what it teaches us about chess, right? It's interesting to understand that how good or bad those kind of positions are. Yesterday in a blitz game, somebody played knight e2 against the winnower, and I revisited that old weird line, which is perfectly sound for white, as it turns out. I'd reviewed it myself from the white side, maybe 1 or 2 years ago, but without supercomputers. And then yesterday somebody played it against me as white, so I checked it with the supercomputer, and yeah, that line is totally sound for white. Interesting. I think the d5 knight f6 move order doesn't trick white into too much, Arsenal fan Richie, because after you play knight f6 on move 2, they could take, and then if you spring your c6 surprise, then they're playing an exchange Slav. Or instead of taking, they might play knight c3 or knight f3, and then you're just playing a normal queen's gambit, because next move you have to play c6 or e6. Unless you can find some more funny lines and surprises to pair it with, you know what I mean? Like maybe you could find that d4, d5, c4, knight f6, knight c3, c5 is a good move for black. And then, maybe then they can't get into anything they know. Oh, I use the term supercomputer lightly, sophisticated. Every chess engine is a supercomputer now. The idea, yeah, I mean, you could maybe just sort of move order trick somebody, get them out of their favorite lines, but... Is there anything wrong with queen h5? Any reason Kostya would think a really long time about it? Maybe knight e5 for black is a logical move. After 20 minutes of chit-chat, my brain finally calculates a single variation. That blocks off bishop takes c5 and possibly threatens bishop g4. I was so gung-ho. Could the same thing have happened if I started with queen h5? One hesitates to say obviously yes. All right. So for anyone not paying attention, it's been established that any commentary I'm making about the players' games today is like 1,000 to 1,200 level. Okay? This is not like insightful stuff. It's just like a fun hangout. I'm not seeing anything today. I'm just chatting with chat while the games unfold before us for fun. Okay? So not my normal style. Normally I try and learn and figure everything out. But we're going to accept where we are today, which is we're just hanging out. We're just seeing what happens, having some fun. Let's see how this game progressed. Rook b4, a5, this pawn, knight c3, Tradovich, knight e5. Here I'd first theorized about maybe knight f6 for Anushka's opponent to try to collect that d5 pawn. I hadn't looked very far ahead because there's the obvious move, rook to d1 for white, which looks fine. So anyway, black played something else. Looking for a knight trade here. Where does the rook go if white plays knight d2? I guess the rook could go to e2, huh? Because you can almost trap that piece now with knight g5 or knight d2 or something. This knight still has retreats. Material's equal, There's no reason Anushka needs to roll over and die just because the opening didn't go well. She maybe has moves like rook e1, bishop f4, knight d2, knight g5. Kostya's made a move on the board we were just on. Let's see what it was. Rook d8, queen e2. Simple. Honestly, Matt's game is probably the most exciting as far as our dreams of checkmates go. Rachel's taken the bishop pair early on in this game here. Yeah, but her dark square bishop's not good yet. It's still a tricky game. I guess a simple-ish improvement on her position is doubling rooks on the d file. I don't know if it's enough to break white. Oh, it could be. It could be, because if white doubles rooks behind the pawn to defend it, black has this bishop b4 move at some point. So I guess rook d7 would be a simple plan, and Rachel's position is pleasant. You know, it's early days, but hopefully she doesn't despair about maybe not sacking anything this game, and she just relaxes into a pleasant, super long-form version of Endgame Sensei. Let's check on Matt's kingside colonization prospects, shall we? Matt also seems very energetically powerful over his board. A5 looking for bishop a6. Bishop d2 allowing it. No, not my light squared bishop! Was there nothing we could do? Just doubles up on the G file. All right. I wish his rook were on G3 instead of G2. He could have done that, right? Then there'd be more potential to sack the queen on H7 and play rook H3. Holy moly, potential? What am I saying, folks? Look at this. Rook G3. Rook A8 like in the game, right? Rook G1. Queen C7 to connect the rooks. Do you see what's coming? Do you believe? Oh. Just that difference of which square you double the rooks on. Skibix, you think that black's planning to play e takes f5 maybe, but you're right. That e takes f5 will always lose the pawn on g6 at this point. Ay, ay, ay. He probably wanted flexibility that he could also move the knight here, right? He was keeping a square for the knight. That's very, very clear. Oh, but what an idea. I mean, what's black to do, right? They have to defend the rook, like in the game, right? Or they have to concede the file, right? That's kind of the point of rook g2 and rook g1, is he's threatening to play gf. If you play ef, you lose the g6 pawn. If you play gf, you lose the rook on g8, right? So black defended the rook on g8. If you do the same thing with rook g3, and it just breaks. Yeah, they can play ef5 to not get mated like that, and then you see there's just this approach here. White just wins a pawn, and everything falls apart for black in this position. There's just nothing there. No position to speak of. It would have been a glorious maneuver, rook to g3 there. Okay, let's continue with this game. So we get this position, and now the question is, how does white make progress? The basic plan that I thought of long ago would be like bishop here, here, opening the g5 square for the knights. Yeah, white's winning there, Skibix. The protected passer on e5 plus black's d5 and f5 pawns remain weak. And as you said in your original comment, black's king is somewhat open as well. So, yeah, black will have to play knight f8 zoom Kerchu to at least cover h7. That's fine, Far Eastern. I probably went very fast because once I thought of it, I got very excited. You know what else would be exciting? Breakfast. Breakfast. The breakfast of champions is just eating anything. That's what a champion would do. They would eat something. So how is Matt to crack the opponent here? Shall we try the bishop maneuver? Should we just give it a look, see what it does? That would be another reason not to play rook g3, right? Oh no, he's opening it. What on earth? Oh, his opponent reappears instantly, summoned. What is he scheming? Perhaps this move here. Threatening mate and e6 and mate on f7. So they take and you take. Threatening g6. Powered by 2 rooks. And if they blockade it, you play knight f4. Seemingly winning the game. The problem is, Matt, I was just reminded in a book that this position, your rooks might never be able to win the game if black just gives you that. With this bishop and these rooks, you might never, ever, ever be able to break through. Although you have h4, h5, and g6. No, you can eventually win this one. Yeah. Pancakes and blueberries are nice, yeah. I'm not an expert on grits and gravy and stuff, yeah. Well, I mean, a biscuit's pleasant. I just haven't eaten many grits. Joao's getting ready for dinner. The evening meal of champions. Matt's opponent obviously intended to answer gf5 with gf5, but we see he's being suspicious. He says, I doubled my rooks on g8 properly. Why are you taking on f5? I did not expect this. Let's say one thing general, folks. You should only play g takes f5 once it accomplishes something very significant and concrete. Because this is just hanging over black at all times. So if you can just keep improving your position, you do not need to do this unless it's really good. Tiffin? T and Tiffin? GF5. That's part of what's meant by the threat being stronger than the execution, Skibix, but it depends on who controls a certain tension. Sometimes you can trade whenever you want and your opponent can't trade, then you can leave that tension sort of hanging over them. If black could play this move and it could be good for them, then white would have to be more careful about when they trade or push or how long they leave it, right? Here, black would have to do this to defend this pawn, and then white would get a second pawn break on h5. So it's generally considered not good for black to play fg when they're choked for space on the king side because of h4, h5. But it's probably not a 100% absolute rule. But I still, think that there's some promise to this plan of just weakening black's dark squares like this, right? Making room for knight g5, rook g3, h3 eventually. But we might need the h-pawn to actually break through. I don't know. A couple trades relieve how badly black's cramped, right? And now they can have more communication and defense. So I'd say fg4 is not completely out of the question. Okay, in that line, you might be right, Richie. It might be more powerful to take with the knight. You're looking to sack here, although I have the knight defending it as well as the pawn, right? Oh, it's a kind of cake. A cake made of biscuits. Okay. Right, if we go queen h3, we at least take the pawn out of the equation. We might be able to do it, yeah. There's also, I will say, one more string to this bow. Is that in some case you might be able to play f5, takes knight f4. And then suddenly they can't cover this square enough. But let's see to what extent that's true. I'm just making the moves instead of trying to count the pieces. It's too confusing. Wow, black had enough defenders. Yeah, der Schutz. That's a beautiful checkmate. Beautiful, huh? Huh. Interesting. Some defensive resilience from black in that line still. His opponent's thinking a long time about recapturing. I mean, it's good to be careful. Matt thought for 9.5 minutes. He's got some kind of idea. You want to take it seriously. But at some point, you have to recapture. Right? And EF, it loses a pawn and ruins your pawn structure. So what's so bad about G takes F? Oh, God. Maybe it's queen h6, folks. We didn't even look at the most just blunt, plop your queen in the opponent's face move of all. If Matt plops his queen here, the threat is like rook g7. But the secondary threat is to just pick this pawn. You can't play knight f8 because you disrupt your rook's connection. Get mated on g8. If you trade this rook and then play knight f8, there's checkmate on g7. But there's no way to defend e6. So you could play a move like bishop f8 to stop queen g7, then there's mate on g8. You could trade here, then play bishop f8 to stop that mate. And then white plays queen g5. Oh, I see why the guy's thinking. Poor lad. Here, I guess we can hold on with knight e7 and cover all mates. Implausible as it seems. Maybe in this position, white can win with the maneuver bishop e1 to h4 and then queen f6. I'm serious. Black is so frozen they can't move anything that there might be no defense to this. If I move the knight, queen f6 is mate, right? So I can't move the knight. If I move this knight, queen g8 is mate. If I move this bishop, queen g7 is mate. Maybe there's knight g6. One defensive move. Okay. So there's one way. So after bishop f8, instead of going for checkmate with queen g5, I will content myself with this. And the full black collapse, threatening checkmate here with this move as well. I don't know, knight e7. And now just bring the bishop around. If black tries to challenge the queen, let's overwork the knight. Oh, God. It's a groan. Dang, Matt, you came up with queen h6, I hope? Well done, lad. Well done. That's a French lesson for us all. A French lesson for us all. Brutality. Whew. That was so conclusive. That queen h6, just looking at the underbelly on e6. I think his opponent may have seen it too, because he's taking a long time to recapture on f5, which is normally, normally you recapture pretty quickly. Richie wondering if there's checkmate after bishop g7. This bishop g7, Richie? Instead of my knight e7, or knight e7 first? Okay. So first of all, that does leave these pawns hanging, which is more pawns. But also, I was planning to play knight g5 here, and I don't know why I didn't play knight g5 against knight f7 now that it comes down to it, but this move is very, very brutal in its threats. For example, it stops your plan of rook g8. If you don't play rook g8, knight f7 is also mate at the moment. Knight h7 is also winning at the moment. Knight h7, knight f7. Queen f5 is a threat. I mean, there's not going to be a game. It's not going to be just a pawn. Black has played g takes f5. Matt's looking forward towards the black king. But is he going to play some lame trades on g8? Or is his queen going to continue her brilliant maneuver? Queen f1 to h3 to h6. She'll be the star of this game. Does rook takes g7 work as well here? Maybe. We should have a follow-up, though. Queen trapped after knight g5, knight f8. Right? No. She can go to f5. She can go to d5. She can dance on the corpses of her enemies here. Also, I had really intended to send her all the way in. This was the pattern I was referring to with knight g5. No! No, queen h6 from Matt. Oh, he uses my first idea, not the second better idea. Oh. This is a proper square for a queen here. This is colonization, like we approve of today. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, look. My first idea long ago here was what Matt played, knight g5. And the idea is after bishop takes, f takes, to then push the pawn to g6. And against rook g6 to play knight f4 and win in exchange. It's probably winning for white, but it's a long slog. And queen h6 just ends things without a question. Nothing left to say or do. Just the full collapse. An easy, rolling, rollicking fun. It is still a sorry task to play as black. I mean, utterly, downright depressing. Agreed. Okay, we're going to get to see Kostya's opponent execute a move here. Very low on time. Knight e5 gets played. 21 minutes for knight e5. Kostya was definitely just walking around to let his opponent waste time. One of Kostya's favorite moves. Just luring him in to sit and think forever. Why spend 21 minutes on knight e5? It's the most obvious move against literally every white queen move. It's your next move, no matter what Kostya plays. Knight e5. 21 minutes. Good Lord. Good Lord Almighty. The knight's amazing on e5. I mean, I don't even know what to do against it, which just makes it all the stranger that it spent so long coming here. Yeah, it's a lot of minutes. It's more minutes than the guy has for the rest of the next 25 moves. Well, yeah, Richie, it's a good move, but like, if you played bishop takes c6 against me in the Ruy Lopez or the Rosalimo, and I fought for 30 minutes and then captured your bishop with my pawn, you wouldn't be like, well, he found the best move in the end. I mean, that thing was just so screaming, honking obvious. We'll go check on some of our other boards, just see what kind of updates we got. So we got knight e5, Tradovich, f3, rook c4, bishop d2. Nushka sidelines this rook. So now she's got a glorious plan of like rook b1, a6, and coming through. Black needs to disrupt, do something with this knight and rook here, like right away. That's funny, Richie. That's funny. Yeah. So black could try to bust out with e6, work their way through this position for the rook. Yeah, get the d pawn rolling. That actually is a great suggestion, Skibix. I love that. I was thinking maybe the knight could somehow disrupt things because she seems pretty good, but no, I don't quite see it for her. So e6, yeah, only real plan for black here. Skibix finds it quickly. We could quickly check if it's fast enough, right? Let's do a quick look at this. I'm just ignoring black completely because white's plan is so awesome, right? Dang. This looks busted. This looks like the end, right? Yeah, maybe with the move order I played, you could play rook takes a7 here. Rook takes a7 and think that you've got compensation for the exchange like this. But look at this little move. I wasn't really calculating much, Richie. I will concede immediately. I didn't calculate much. Matt's game's going the direction we thought. Exchange set coming from black to lock up the game. That should be in a French player's wheelhouse. So I'm not surprised his opponent found it, but props to him anyway. F5 is too little too late. White's got a full checkmating team here. And apparently white's up a rook, not an exchange as well. So this did not go well for black. I mean, I give you full credit for e6, Skib, but I'm not really seeing any kind of defense at all here. Maybe rook a7, rook b7, knight c6. Okay, but hang on. Let's put in a little thing here. Let's play our nasty move again, right? Bishop h6. Oh, knight c6 to try and stop rook b8, right? And now we go straight for the knight, not the rook. By the way, Jesse would say crispy, yes, Because part of what's going on here is that against this move, I'm checking, moving the king over here, and then coming here with check, so there's no time for knight d7 or knight c6 or whatever, right? So we get straight to this kind of situation. And yeah, now it's just a matter of time before white goes up a queen, basically. Hey, Grandmaster, thank you for the raid. Very kind of you. Let's give you a shout out. Alvar Lonzo. So as the title indicates, this is live coverage of a chess tournament in Maia, Portugal. We're following 4 people here. Rook a6 was played, and Anushka, on point, goes towards rook b1. Working on this. It's an international tournament, an open. There are players from, I don't know, 1,000 all the way up to 2,600, grandmasters and IMs, and normal folk as well. Not to suggest the title players are deviants. I'm a chess teacher who's just kind of chilling today, not doing the best teaching, whatever. My mind is burned or something. But normally I'm a chess teacher, and I run this channel with 2 other chess teachers, Kostya Kavutskiy and Jesse Kraai, an IM and a GM, and Kostya is one of the people playing at this tournament. So we've got his game here and also his video camera, as you can see. And, oh, look at that. Kostya just went and tickled the pawn. Yeah. That's logical and perhaps stronger than the idea of challenging the open file with rook d1 and just having black plop a bishop on g4 and realize that you're not going to control the d file as white here. So, interesting. So queen b5 from Kostya. And then we've got 3 other players that we're following here. They're all students of the dojo, so to speak, people we've been training. We've got Matthew Purchard with the white pieces in this French defense here. Then we've got Rachel Burak in this endgame here as black with the bishop pair. And finally over here, we've got Anushka Narasani, white side of a Banco gambit. Seemed like she messed something up in the opening. Black won back the pawn on e4, but this endgame is looking fairly challenging for black right now to defend against white's pawn, because Anushka found a weird way to trap this rook on c4. She can't win it, but it is struggling to get back in the game, and she's got a plan to just pilot the a-pawn down the board with the extra rook, always breaking the blockade, right? If knight to d7, I imagine rook b7 will do the job here, right? Force the knight to move again and get this rook to b6. And the other thing that black needs to be on the lookout for is we've noticed that in many positions, she could play a move like bishop h6 and suddenly play for checkmate. Release the trap on the rook when it's too late for the rook to get back to the back rank in time. So king g7 played. That seems to allow rook b6 for the moment. I imagine that's what she'll play. At least it avoids bishop h6 and any checkmating patterns. So, yeah, these are our 4 heroes of this tournament. Let me just answer these messages. Sorry. All right. Yeah, Kostya's opponent is under huge time pressure here after queen b5. 11 minutes left to make time control at move 40. There's a 30-second increment, but that's not a lot to play your whole middle game on a 30-second increment. And the fellow looks like he's not ready to move anytime soon. Looks like Matt's gotten the queen off of the H file. His game is progressing kind of maybe the most clearly and quickly. Oh my god, black locked the center. And now Matt's just going to get back to pushing the king side here, right? When that pawn hits h5. Oof. Oof. Well, Matt, enjoy it. You better enjoy this game. We only get to enjoy games like this so often in life. Beautiful. Let's maybe have a look. The game we've looked at the absolute least is this game of Rachel's because they were playing at such a glacial pace early on. I feel like here she slightly overplayed it with this trade, check, push, right? Because she gave the white king the square c2 to coordinate the other white pieces. I'm thinking maybe just f6 in this position. This is white's better bishop than this one, right? So this one's not escaping you. If white takes here, great, right? Amazing piece. Let's actually double check that we even need to defend this pawn, though. Let's just be sure. Let's say I go here. Can white steal my pawn or my heart? Yeah, they can. I had to defend that pawn. I'm going to concede I had to defend that pawn. But I still like f6, you know, leaving this king to languish here a little bit longer. The bishop can't move away because e4 would hang. I feel like I just play f6 for free for now. Okay, Far Eastern says Rachel may be stuck for a plan if we catch up. Oh, hence the knight for bishop trade. No, I think it was her plan. It is the right plan, Far Eastern, to trade on d3 at some point. I just think at this point she could improve it by waiting on it. Does that make sense? I want to play the same plan, but I don't want to give the white king the c2 square as soon. I want to castle comfortably while white is sorting out their king and rook situation. And my plan is still, you know, the moment white plays a move like knight d2 defending e4 so they could keep their bishop pair, you'll see me snap it off. Or maybe I'll play bishop c6. Keep white bottled up. Ooh. Hang on. Me likey. Knight d2. Let's tie white down to that. Ooh. So now they've got to go this way. It's the only square for the king. Now we castle. Rook here. And, you know, yeah, at some point I'll probably trade and play this plan here, right? But in the meantime, well, I've got other options. I could also try to explode the center since the king's on e2, and we still got lots of pieces on the board, right? Like, this would be a beautiful plan if white allowed it. Maybe they'd play g4 and hold it together. Maybe g4 is fine for white. Maybe I'm not accomplishing anything. Or maybe it gives me an extra front for tension, you know, where I go rook g8, threatening to come into g2 at some point, make white defend that square. At some point, this bishop should let the rook's pressure be felt. Yeah. We're talking like, you know, very small fractions of a pawn difference, but I think that's like a little preferable than letting white immediately untangle their pieces like this. She seemed to not want to play f6. Then she ended up playing f6 and h6. So that's just a wasted move. Yeah. Okay. And why the rook's on e8 and not d8, I don't know either. Huh. I don't fully follow how Rachel's playing this endgame, but obviously I don't fully follow many things today. Hi, Chess with me. Do I think we'll have crazy games in the sync field? I don't know how the qualification even works for the Sao Paulo spots, Skibix. I feel like Prague beating Firouzja yesterday, didn't that have a big impact on it? Didn't that mean Prague's basically in and Firouzja's basically going to give up? I don't know. I don't know too well. I hope we have crazy games in the sync field, but I don't really know for sure. Okay, so the pawn for Anushka is getting very close, and this rook is still trapped. Like, badly trapped. You could go rook a8 to win a piece, but you could probably have time to go rook a8, rook d8, and win a whole queen, right? It feels very close to the end for Anushka's opponent. Wow, she showed great character today. To flub that opening, drop the e-pawn, and then collect herself and find a clean way to win this game. That's beautiful. That's really tough to do. Well done. Well done. She looks in really good shape. Let's click over to Matt's game because he's been playing a lot of moves. His opponent threatened f4. He just blocked it. This would be more controversial if Black's pawn were on c5, right? And the d-pawn might be hanging. But he blocks it. Queen f2. I'm not sure exactly what that's about. This should be the plan still, I think. Maybe there's still something going on. Something tricky here still. He tries to figure out how to break into Black's position. I will note that h4 here, if you let the Black queen take the light squares, you might not be able to break that blockade. Very important not to get blockaded here. If we don't manage to get this pawn to h5, this could become a full board blockade. But as far as I can tell, if the knight moves back, you just move your queen up. And Black has no other piece that can actually reach that square. Like a knight on g7 might really mess with us. But this looks like White just advances comfortably. If the knight comes back, you might watch out for h5, knight h4. So you might prefer to play like rook h2. But the pawn's definitely making it, as far as I can tell. So I don't know what queen f2 is about right here. I don't really see what it was about. But he's thinking a bit. Do I coach? Yep. We're watching people that I coach chess with me. 3 of the 4 people were following. I coached them for 5 weeks before this tournament. I gave them slightly modified versions of the Chess Dojo training plan and gave them, advice and emotional coaching as well. The chess therapy part of chess coaching. Tried to get them ready and on point to make the most of their time at the tournament. h4 played, knight e7. So the idea now would be if you play h5 too soon, Black can trade your bishop and then play queen takes h5. Now, we could calculate really hard, and I think it'll still work out. We can hang our stuff. Or we could play this move, and isn't that the end? Now h5 is threatening to trap the knight. But let me do the calculation real quick for you. Here, 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 here. Boom. Idea is to play g6. If black blockades it with the queen, she's not a reliable blockader. We come here. She's got to defend this pawn as well. She comes here. Bang. That would be the game, right? Matt's played a move. It was rook h2. So he allowed one knight trade. And so he's going a different route. So you see, he could blunder into black's idea with h5. It would work. Bishop c1 to me was really simple. I don't see what black would do. You might worry that black's going to play f4 and get some activity and compensation with these pieces. But after h5, you trap a full knight. So nothing to think about there. But okay, he played rook h2. And his opponent traded once on f4, right? Oh, no, not yet. Not yet. Still thinking about it. Okay. The danger here is basically his opponent trades and plays queen h5. What? What's that about, Matt? Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Depending which position you meant, Alice, this one here, I had knight takes g6, this rook takes g6. If that's the one you were wondering about. Oh, sorry, I need to get breakfast at some point here. I'm not strong enough for this. Kostya's opponent down to 4 minutes. So when he had 36 minutes, he spent 21 of them on knight e5, more than half his time. But then he outdid that. Here with 16 minutes, he spent 12, 3/4 of his time. More than 3/4 of his time, 12 minutes and 40 seconds on knight to g4. And maybe Nemtomi. Honestly, when I did commentary yesterday, I was so exhausted, I didn't even stay on my computer after the games ended long enough to see if Kostya came on. I just collapsed on my bed. If I'm a little bit better today, I can see if he wants to come on. But, you know, the games are played quite late in Portugal, and he needs to get dinner. And probably post-mortem with his opponents and so forth. So I imagine he's got a lot going on. Yeah. You don't understand knight g4. Could you play h3, knight e3, bishop c5? Maybe, but even more primary question, Skibix, can white play bishop c5? What say we to that? Like, is there that move moved black's best piece and didn't defend c5 as far as I can see? Is there anything keeping Kostya from playing bishop takes c5 here? That's question number 1. Oh, maybe, thank God, Matt's opponent didn't set up the blockade? Rook h2, king g7. h5, Tradovich. The king runs forward. I guess he's got dreams of running here, but did he look ahead? Where you going, mate? Oh. Rook h8. Wow. yeah, I gotta hand it to Artur. That provides a certain kind of defense. If Matt plays g6, he can trade the pawn, trade the rook, and then capture the pawn on g6 safely with his knight. So Matt's got some real work to do here. I'm going to leave you on Kostya's position while I go try and remedy my lightheadedness. T'as envie de quelque chose, chérie? Je vais descendre chercher à manger. Tu veux? Tu veux quelque chose? Je descends en bas chercher quelque chose à manger. Est-ce que tu veux quelque chose? Ok. Quand je reviens, je vais te donner des devoirs. Tu vas faire une pause. Ça fait déjà 2 heures sans une pause. Je sais que t'es cosy. starting to come together here. Voilà.
There's no homework in here.
Ok, bah il y a des maths ici. Sûrement tu peux trouver quelque chose à faire.
Do I have to?
Oui.
How are you feeling so good?
Quoi? Toi tu te sens mieux que moi?
Not true.
Tu fais que rigoler depuis 2 heures?
And it hurts.
Ok.
That's why I'm not happy.
Ah, ok.
Tell me what exponents are.
T'en as sur ta feuille déjà? Ok. Donc c'est un petit numéro en haut d'un autre numéro, oui? J'imagine que pour commencer, il te donne des numéros petits comme 1, 2, 3, des trucs comme ça. Un exponent, ça veut dire combien de fois tu multiplies le numéro par lui-même. Donc, et on dit aussi au premier pouvoir, au deuxième pouvoir, etc. Donc si tu as 3 et avec un petit 1, ça veut dire 3 une fois. Donc 3.
3 what?
3 une fois. Donc 3. Si tu as 3 et un petit 2, tu multiplies 2, 3 ensemble. Si tu as 3 et un petit 3 en haut, ça veut dire que tu multiplies 3 fois ensemble.
If there's a 2 and a petit 3, can you do a 3 and a petit 2?
Non.
Why not?
Parce que 2 et un petit 3, c'est 2 fois 2 fois 2. Et 3 et un petit 2, c'est 3 fois 3. Et c'est différent.
Wait, what?
Tu m'écoutes ou pas du tout?
It's hard.
Non, c'est pas difficile.
Yeah, it is.
Non, il faut juste écouter.
You're the first half because I have these on.
Ouais, si tu n'écoutes pas, c'est plus difficile, c'est vrai.
It was an accident.
Matthew's game looks like they're signing score sheets. Yes. Let us check. Rook h8. What did Matthew find here? I wasn't confident. HG. HG. Knight g6. Whoa! What about rook h2 check? What was the plan? Oh no. What on earth? They're going to go do a post-mortem. But what on earth is going on? What are either of them thinking? Isn't Matt just losing his g-pawn here? It's check. You recapture with king or queen, and then black takes. And how are you... What? What? That seems way below their level. I don't know what was going on. Maybe they were just both resigned. Maybe black was resigned to losing and white was resigned to winning, and so they just stopped paying any attention to what they were doing, but... Makes no sense at all. What on earth? Kostya's taking a long think about the c5 pawn. I'm going to try again over here. Ok. Donc, le numéro en bas.
The big one.
Oui, ça c'est le numéro normal. Et le numéro en haut, ça dit combien de fois tu multiplies le grand nombre par lui-même. Ok? Donc, quand tu as 3 et puis un numéro en haut, c'est que les 3 ensemble. Ok? Tu vois l'exemple? 100, c'est 10, 2 fois 10. Tu vois? Pas 2 fois 10, mais 2 10 multipliés ensemble. N'est-ce pas? Là, tu as combien de 10 multipliés ensemble? Non, regarde.
Wait, what? But there's no little thing in
Combien de 10 est-ce qu'il y
Oh,
a?
you're supposed to make an exponent.
Tu dois compter combien de 10 il y a en total ici. Ici, c'est combien de 10? Plus celui-là. C'est combien de 10 ça?
1.
1. Et ça, c'est combien de 10 multipliés ensemble pour faire celui-là?
10. Oh, 10 times 10. 1.
Donc, combien de 10 sont multipliés ensemble?
2.
2. Donc, il y a en total 3 10 qui sont multipliés ensemble là. Tu comprends ça ou pas?
Not really.
Ok. Il y a des explications ici ou pas du tout?
No. You're supposed to do it. That's what we're doing today
Si.
in class.
Lis ça.
Oh my gosh.
C'est tout là, dans le livre.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Ok. Okay. Wait, we don't need these. Right. Okay. Let's update Matthew's score here. He gets back up to an even score. So far, he's playing better than his score. And I think he's hopefully feeling reasonable about it all at this point. Let's go check on Anushka, speaking of marking up scores, because there's a chance her game could be over as well. She's got an extra queen at the moment. So it's very close. Let's see how she got the queen, shall we? So we had black moved the e-pawn. We thought e6. Now it's showing e5. Takes. It's fine. Yeah, you could also ignore it. Rook here threatening to queen, but the king can just get out of the way. So that was a wasted move. The rook should just go straight to a8. Now it might look like king e7 would be very costly for white with rook a7, but white does luckily have bishop g5. Otherwise, you'd be regretting that rook a7 tempo for a long time. Anyway, one tempo gets wasted, but the rook comes around. Takes. Sacks the bishop, sure. Could also just move the bishop to c1 or something. Oh no, if you don't, the rook's coming to b4 next move, right? Yeah, so very precise of Anushka. She takes, and then queens. Now she's up a queen. Black's trying for stalemate. Brazen. All right, take care, Alice. Have a good rest of your day. So, today is a relatively good day for the dojo, but every day is a good day if they're having fun. You know, it's not all about winning and losing, but we see some really good stuff coming through here for Anushka, who had the toughest start to the tournament of anyone. Her first round opponent didn't show up, which was disappointing. Her previous tournament to this tournament was a disappointing tournament for her, result-wise. So she was coming into this tournament, or into her training for the tournament. She came into her training with low confidence. We tried to work on that during the training, try to stabilize her confidence at the right place. And today, not only had the tournament started wrong, but today the game started wrong, and she had to fight her way through that. She did really nicely. So this was a really, really good one. She's got a lot of, flair, chess talent, knowledge, understanding kind of stuff. But I didn't know what kind of I didn't know in detail what kind of personality she had in terms of grit, determination, that kind of stuff until what I saw today. So this is really nice to see, because those kind of qualities are also part of not just chess success, but anything in life, anything you try and do. Okay, so that one's more or less wrapped up, although she's really struggling to checkmate with the queen and the rook. And her opponent won't stop making us go through this painful process worthy of a bullet game. Is Kostya playing with low confidence? No. He seemed to be playing quite confidently to me, Nemtomi. Oh, wait, I gotta go get my food. Tu le comprends pas? Non. Quoi? Faire quoi dans ta tête? Pourquoi pas écrire les réponses là-dessus? Mais si tu n'écris pas les réponses, on ne sait pas si tu l'as fait correctement ou si tu... C'est pas beaucoup d'écrire 4 chiffres, chérie. Ooh, critical moment in the Rachel game. How did my board get switched there? I thought I left us on this game. Okay. Shall we see what's going on here for a moment? A3. Oh, we just got a move from Kostya. He played H3. And Gabriella did not use 3 of the 4 minutes, but retreated the knight immediately. Bravo. Getting serious now. So the point for black was to take the knight on e5 on the best square on the board and reposition that piece. The best black piece. And I do not know what's protecting that pawn on c5. Do not know. But okay, let's look at something interesting here. It seems like Rachel could take on a3, right? She does take it. Now, there's this question of the a7 pawn, right? If that gets captured, black's plan is b6, trapping it. If rook a1, then black can take on d3. Wait, d3's attacked 3 times already. Black could already take d3 before the bishop took the pawn if they wanted to, right? So Rachel was probably also calculating this move here, right? Allowing something like pawn takes, rook takes, or whatever, right? That was probably why she was thinking here. There's some stuff to calculate. She could start by taking with the bishop as well. That seems to win the game hard, right? If rook takes, and if they take this bishop, you take this one. So you're up in exchange. And if they move the king, you take the rook. Also winning at least an exchange. So she could have won a pawn in an exchange, but she says that pawn on d3 is so dead, she just takes the a pawn, leaves it there. White plays rook a1. Now she starts to collect white's pieces. Oh my god, and the king's almost made it. What? This is turning into slaughterfest. The only square it can go to is here, which lines it up for rook d3 after all this. Okay. Wow. Looks overwhelmingly good for Rachel right now. Like, she's just collecting the pieces now. Collecting those pieces. Wow. Kostya spent 28 minutes on that h3 move? Wow. And then queen c5. So he knew he was going to take the pawn, and he just thought, let's kick that knight back so that my isolated pawn's not attacked when I take it. That's my one-sentence summary of 28 minutes of thought. I don't know too much. Something deep must have been going on. Something deep. But this looks very clean. Like, you win the pawn, maybe trade queens, put this bishop on d4. It's a god there. If they ever trade it, your pawn structure becomes too good. It just looks, it doesn't look, I mean, it just looks winning, period. Matt did goose chess, although it seemed like it was just mutual blunders on the last couple moves. I don't know. I don't trust myself today because I've been blundering in analysis, but he did take the win. Has this checkmate happened yet? Yes. So that's a second point for the dojo today. Today we're collecting them. Today it's going to be 4 out of 4 for the dojo. You'll see, folks. It's the day where the hard work pays. That's 2 points. Rachel just captured a full free rook, I think. I think she's up a rook now. Oh, maybe white could like move this bishop and then hope to collect one of her bishops, but she's got bishop g2 pinging the knight. She's got rook d1 running the king out of places to go. I just don't believe it. I think she's going to be up a full rook here. I think Kostya's going to be up a pawn, but, you know, in a master section, this pawn is similar to... Qu'est-ce qu'il y a? Adosse-toi. Assieds-toi et adosse-toi. T'as besoin d'aide avec quoi, Sean? Comment s'asseoir? Est-ce que t'es fiévreux? Tu veux faire une sieste? Oh, ça marche très bien. Il faut écrire ça tout petit en haut, n'est-ce pas?
I can't write small. I can't choose what I write.
Je vais écrire le 3 pour toi. Voilà. Whew. It is a nice stream layout. I agree, Cross. Matthew made it, of course. Matthew made it. Matt Perchard. Fair, Robin, yeah. Comfortably decisive advantage for Kostya. Plus 2 point something in new computer speak. Like, completely over. You're right, there's even pressure on b7. Black can't even finish developing yet. So bishop d4 is beautiful and all. But a simple idea for Kostya is to play rook d1 before b7 is defended and get control of the d file. There, his opponent offers him the b7 pawn immediately. Good lord. Matthew says Rachel won. Yeah. A rout. Her opponent resigns after bishop takes f1. How did it... We missed a few moves here. How did it get so decisive? We were here. Knight e1 defending the pawn makes sense. Rook f3, bishop c6. Rook back. Bishop b4. The idea to maybe trade the knight and then attack b5. And white won't have enough pieces to defend d3 because it's opposite colored bishops. Look, this is kind of cool. You could trade off this. Now, they always say opposite colored bishops, it's so drawish. But look at how many pawns white has stuck on light squares. And they're all about to drop, right? So you could just end up losing this line of 3 pawns. And then the opposite colored bishop ending won't be a draw. Yeah, that was a cool idea. So she goes bishop b4, threatening to trade it off. And she comes back and it's just dead. Oops. What I don't understand is white played rook f3. She retreated her bishop. I don't know why. And that made white take back their idea. Wasn't the idea to maybe like have the rook on the 3rd rank? Oh, I see what white figured out. They figured out that she'll do something like this and then play bishop takes e4. That's why she moved her bishop back to c6. And so white came back, and then she did this first before bringing her bishop back to b5. So that's how white sort of got outmaneuvered in that little part. Understood. Let's give her her point and then follow Kostya. All right, so Kostya went for bishop e7, not bishop takes b7, not bishop d4. I think the point is wreck the opponent's structure, prevent black from coming in on e4 for any kind of counterplay against him. Right? Like, okay, here, we'll calculate a simple line. Bishop b7, check, hitting that bishop, right? And the king. Trades, hitting this bishop, and threatening knight g3. Now, maybe bishop b6 keeps you from dropping this pawn. Maybe knight g3, king g2, or king h2, or knight g3, king g2. Maybe it's not good for black to let you take on d8. Maybe. So maybe they just do this, though, and let you play king g2, and then they play, like, rook check into your 2nd rank, oops, and grab this pawn. And we can feel that with only one extra pawn and suddenly all the black pieces out, nothing clear about this at all, right? So bishop b7 would not be good. Kostya goes bishop e7. Very clever. He's going to crack the knight, crack the structure, leave this bishop weak, and potentially even play a move knight h5 at the end, lining up his rook with hanging bits on the f-file. You see? We're getting some moves kind of quickly. So knight e4 got played. Kostya took the rook, got checked, came here. Now, if black takes his rook, he's going to take on b6 with an extra piece. And if black recaptures, he's going to move his rook away with an extra exchange. So this bishop e7 move, it looks like Kostya had calculated a little bit ahead. He not only looked at something quote-unquote simple, like rook d7, defending the pawn, bishop takes, pawn takes, and let's guess that maybe he would have played knight f6 then. This is maybe a straightforward variation. But he not only looked at that, but he looked at what if the guy's desperate and flings some move like knight e4 at me, and he's prepared. He doesn't play king h2. He doesn't play bishop e4. He takes the check, slips to g1, and he's just winning heavy material here. So we might be moments away from... Well, his opponent doesn't have enough time to resign, maybe. No, he does. Often when you have this little time, you just bash out a few more moves because you don't even have enough time to make the heavy decision of resigning. But he does. And I'm only 2 bites into my breakfast. 1 bite of each fruit. I guess I could have maybe made it through without breakfast. They all get an early evening, which is good now and then in a tournament, you know. Like, you go to a chess tournament, obviously, to play long, grinding endgames for 5 or 6 hours, right? That's the point of going to a tournament. But over the course of the tournament, playing like 8, 9 games like that, at some point, a certain level of fatigue also hits you. And here and there, you'll find yourself wanting for a moment to just catch your breath. You just want like one opponent to blunder in the opening or the middle game, you know, just one day where you get like a couple extra hours, you know, get to like eat or hang out just a little bit more, take your time. So you find that everybody starts wanting that at some point in their tournament. Parce que les devoirs sont un problème ou parce que tu es malade? Si tu es malade, tu peux te reposer. Tu n'as besoin de rien faire quand tu es malade. Oui, mais quand tu regardais ton vidéo, tu avais l'air bien en forme. Tu faisais que rigoler, tu disais je suis super contente de ne pas être à l'école. Tu te sens beaucoup pire maintenant? Ok, repose-toi. Fais une petite sieste. In typing with Matt just now, I called him mate. Is that proper for the Brits in the chat? Yeah, maybe Magyar Zerker. Maybe this will be a day where Kostya's got that extra time and energy to come kick it with us. Man, that 28 minutes on h3. Maybe he calculated all this stuff, even a move before. I'm chatting with Matt. Another Matt. And he's British, so I called him mate instead of dog. I'm just wondering if that's proper. Did I give Kostya his point? Nope, not yet. Let's give Kostya his point. Come on. Come on, Pruess. The points count too. Even if you don't care about him that much and you're all wave the flowers. Give him his point. Maybe he wants it. If it weren't for the GM title, Kostya wouldn't even play chess. You guys recognize that voice? Jesse is full D-Gen Blitz. I'm also playing D-Gen Blitz, Skibix. Well, maybe a little bit less D-Gen. But I played Blitz yesterday. ZJ Termination, I guess I missed your question. Sorry. Hey, David. So right now I'm about to analyze one of my classical tournament game losses. Should I have the eval bar on or off? Off. I never ask my opponent to taste nuts during the game, Skibix. Nope, never. Never, never, never. It's not yet happened. I'm a great fan of squirrels, but I still don't ever say that. But I did do 8 hours of work on my Blitz quest yesterday. So that's a lot. That's a lot. That's pretty degen. 8 hours of work. Plus 4.5 hours on a Maia International broadcast. So 12.5 hours of chess yesterday. Yeah, 12.5 hours with COVID. Because none of my kids had COVID yesterday, so I had no kids to watch out or help, really. I'm feeling a little bit more better than yesterday, yeah. But let's look real quick. Let's see how many games I played in 8 hours. Does it show my games here somewhere? All right, yesterday was August 25th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I played 7 games. 7 blitz games in 8 hours. Yeah, an impressive commitment to DGen Blitz. It's always fun to, really investigate the topics of our podcasts, Like a lot of times the podcast answers some questions, but opens up a lot of other questions. The whole training program is just an offshoot of us, asking this question: could you make a universal training plan that would apply to anybody? We said probably not, or at least I said probably not. But despite saying probably not, I thought, well, we could try for 2 months and just see, and just, answer the question better that way, right? So can I make 2600 in blitz? I said probably not, but I'm still going to try for a month or so and see if it's interesting. Yeah, so 8 hours on the Blitz quest, 7 Blitz games. The games themselves probably took me less than an hour to play, right? Maybe like 6 or 7 minutes per game. 50 to 60 minutes for all the games, right? Maybe 50 minutes to play the 7 games. Another half hour to review them. And then 6.5 hours working on my opening repertoire. Oh, actually, I didn't log the Blitz games in my time. So I did 8 hours just on the opening repertoire, an hour and a half on the Blitz, 4.5 hours on Maia. So I did a 14-hour chess day yesterday. Yeah. What did your coach tell you? Let's see. You play with ratings hidden, and you do that OTB as well. So right. Yeah. I mean, at some point, if you never look to such, you get so used to not looking or thinking about it, then even if you do happen to see it, you won't think about it or care about it even after you've seen it, because it's your habit to not care about it. Sorry for everybody on YouTube. The folks on Twitch are chatting about whether or not you should look at your opponent's rating before you play them and how useful it can be to not look at it and just play them normally. Yeah, keeps you from being scared, keeps you from being overconfident, keeps you honest. Good. It's working out well for you. Huh. We're going to wait a couple more minutes to see if Kostya comes on. And if he doesn't, we're going to do some other streaming. We're going to switch topics to something else. We can. I'll show you a couple of my games from my D-Gen Blitz yesterday. You can see how D-Gen it is. You feel like you should have pressed for a loss with your bad position? Yeah, see you tomorrow, Matthew. That's hilarious. YouTube anecdote from Twitch. There's a guy at Goose's local chess club who refuses to know his rating and kindly asks his opponents not to tell him. So if you've seen my rating, don't tell me. They've gone up 300 points this year, and nobody can congratulate them because that would reveal that their rating had gone up 300 points. So you can't say anything about it. Very nice. Nice of everybody to respect that. Tu te sens assez bien? T'es sûr? Parce que dormir, c'est vraiment le meilleur.